Gallantmon support has been so frequent over the last couple of sets that you would think, surely it's finally a tier 1 top meta deck. Well, we're not quite there yet. However, the resilience of the deck has drastically improved, and it can definitely blow your opponent out if they're not prepared for it. So let's jump into the deck profile and see what shiny new tools BT12 has brought for us Gallantmon diehards. Gallantmon as a deck is fundamentally about deletion. Your mission is to reduce the opponent's Digimon to bits and bytes, all the while profiting off of the destruction that you're dishing out. You keep that up, and then you blow them out with a Crimson Mode. Easy, right? Well, of course, Gallantmon does have its work cut out for it, and it does need a little setup to really snowball into a winning position. Jumping right into the Digitama, there's nothing that helps your setup quite like a reliable draw 1, and EX2 Digimon does that for our main line. You can run a 5th egg here if you want, but I really value the consistency of what my egg is doing, so these 4 are solid enough. This is a tribal deck, so no surprise that all of our rookies are Guillemons. BT12 Gallantmon is a searcher for our dedicated tamer, Takato, and it provides a 2000 DP buff to our main line. Play this one to dig your tamers out early on, and then maybe consider putting it in the raising afterwards because it's going to start bottom decking your higher level Digimon the later you go into the game. EX2 Gallantmon is a more flexible searcher, grabbing a Growlmon or Gallantmon and one Takato. It also provides small body removal thanks to its inheritable popping 3000 DP or less Digimon when attacking. And then there's the starter deck Guillemon, who is all about that warp digivolving goodness. If the opponent has a level 6 or higher Digimon in play, then you can pay 4 memory costs to warp digivolve into a Gallantmon. This is a great way to get back into the game, and combined with Takato granting blitz, it can absolutely turn a game around. And hey, its inheritable nets you a draw if you pop something, so that is solid value. On to the champions, we have BT12 Growlmon, who exists solely to play out Takato if you don't already have one in play. You really need to have Takato in play, so you want to make this play as early as possible. The card also provides a 2000 DP buff as an inheritable, which lets you get big enough to challenge some of the bulkier boss monsters out there. Starter deck Growlmon is still a solid pick. The 4-drop cost is relevant in a deck that does brick as often as Gallantmon does, and the inheritable to gain a memory when deleting something is valuable for making tempo-efficient plays. And then I have 2 copies of Gallantmon X Antibody because EX3 Growlmon is honestly a liability right now, and sometimes the X evolution does help you dig a little bit deeper for your combo pieces. And hey, it allows you to reach a little further with your deletion effects, so still not a terrible card by any means. Next up, we've got our ultimates, and BT12 War Growlmon takes pride of place in this lineup. It can pop a 4000 DP or less body when digivolving, but if it doesn't, you can immediately digivolve into a Gallantmon, reducing the cost by 1 while you're at it. This card is so important to climbing back up when you lose your first stack, and it rewards you for clearing the opponent's board because it's inheritable nets you 2 memory at the end of an attack if the opponent has no Digimon in play. EX3 War Growlmon is still really important to the deck since it mills and plays out Takato, but it is obviously a risky play in a meta flooded with Beelzemon. If you mill their stuff, there's a good chance that you can pass the turn early, give them free bodies, or worst of all, get popped. So be careful with this and try to avoid it unless you're literally going to try to mill them out by going into War Growlmon. And then 2 copies of War Growlmon X Antibody will round out the level 5s here. This card is a nice way to extend your turn since it can delete 1 or more small bodies and gain back some memory, potentially proccing other effects like starter deck Growlmon to gain even more advantage. And that can often mean keeping turn and climbing 1 step further to reach your level 6. Speaking of level 6s, we start off with the new BT12 Gallantmon. There is so much to love here. You can raid, which allows you to beat over boss monsters that might have protection against your deletion effects. You can also pop a 6000 DP or less body when digivolving, and you can pop a similarly sized body when attacking. But if you whiff the when attacking pop, you can actually trash the top card of the opponent's security instead. It's just so much value in one card. but it does have a 4 evo cost, which will come up, and sometimes you don't want to proc those deletion triggers. So for those reasons, I actually only run 2 in the deck right now. Now, I leaned a bit more into the starter deck Gallantmon because it's a cheap evo at 3, and it has security attack +1 naturally, and can get absolutely massive if you don't delete something on the swing. It does have some built-in small body removal, but really this exists to exert a lot of pressure or serve as a cost-efficient stepping stone to your other pieces. Gallantmon X Antibody is still a fantastic card to run at 2, offering an extra pop and a way to trash the opponent's security without attacking. It can also unsuspend if you don't delete something, which could mean dishing out even more damage. I wish that I could have run a heavier X Antibody package in the deck, to be honest, but the format is a little bit hostile to that, and I found that it does make the deck a little bit brickier. So in this case, we are going to slim down and just play the 2 copies. And then we have our finisher, Gallantmon Crimson Mode. When digivolving, you eradicate all of your opponent's Digimon with the highest DP, and when attacking, you trash 1 security card automatically, and then trash an additional security for every 10 cards in the opponent's trash. If you resolve this attack versus Beelzemon, you probably win the game. And against other decks, this is still a formidable play to make, backed up by your ability to blitz thanks to Takato. There is one more Digimon here, but since it doesn't have a level, I saved it for last. A Gallantmon is basically an in-archetype cool boy. You get that memory and draw when digivolving alongside a very generous 3000 DP boost. And what's better is that you can slap this down for just 1 memory if a Gallantmon is in play. It's not always relevant, but it can give you the edge in a pinch. So, why not try it out? On to the tamers, I am of course running a full 4 count of EX2 Takato. This tamer gives your Growlmons and Gallantmons blitz, and when you delete something, you can suspend Takato to gain a memory. It's a play extender par excellence, and you cannot win without it. I honestly believe that. So max out your counts, play the 4, and get one into play ASAP. BT12 Takato is a welcome inclusion, giving us a dedicated memory tamer with the ability to biomerge with a Gallantmon, tucking Growlmon and War Growlmon from our trash into the sources in order to warp Digivolve into a Gallantmon for its Digivolution cost. This card is why I favor the starter deck Gallantmon, because if you have this tamer out, of course, you get set to 3, you promote your Gallantmon, you warp into the starter deck Gallantmon for 3, keeping turn, and then you can pop off from there. That said, BT12 Gallantmon is still a fair target because if you have the other Takato in play, that will give you blitz, so you can still do something after warping up. And then I tech in 1 copy of Analog Youth because Gallantmon really suffers from losing its first stack, and if you crash into something huge in security or trigger a security bomb, well, that can often cost you the game. At least here, Analog Youth will gain you back a memory and let you hatch a Digitama. So if you get to keep turn with this, then you can slam down another Gallantmon in the raising area and get ready to warp and continue your onslaught next turn, instead of having to give your opponent basically a free turn to do whatever they want while you're trying to catch back up. And hey, this is technically a searcher, and trashing cards that you don't get, it can be a little bit of an issue, but it also allows War Growlmon from EX3 to fulfill its condition and play out Takato, so I still think it's a win-win to include this here at just a single copy. And finally, the deck runs 1 option card, or rather 2 copies of 1. Red Memory Boost is here just for consistency, because, honestly, it gives our later turns a bit more longevity, which potentially allows us to climb from our rookie to the mega level, depending on how many deletion triggers we can score along the way. And that's the deck. It feels more straightforward and less reliant on the X antibody line, yes, and while I do miss the degeneracy of Cool Boy, I don't miss bricking on a ton of Cool Boys and Takatos, nor do I miss being reliant on the X antibody option to show up in order for me to actually get anything done. Now, I do think you have a decent matchup into everything save for maybe Hunters and War Greymon, and yes, with really solid play, you can theoretically edge out Beelzemon, though in all honesty, that is a nut I have yet to crack myself. Guys, we are so close. Gallantmon is this close to becoming a tier 1 deck. It's just a little too fair right now, which is an issue not shared by the top meta decks of the moment. That said, if Bandai just went ahead and printed some instack protection for Gallantmon, well, then we would be in business, wouldn't we? But anyway, while we're all holding out hope for Gallantmon to get that instack protection, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And hey, if you have some notes for navigating the Beelzemon matchup, I would really appreciate it if you would drop those down below. But anyway, guys, I will catch you all in the next one, and until then, peace.